Being a wife is not easy. This is a meaningful gift for your girlfriend, boyfriend, or those who are about to become brides, grooms, and in-laws. Marriage is a special kind of life, complicated. It requires nurturing mutual love, but it also needs to be well managed. To have a good marriage and successful life, you must learn how to firmly grasp the essential responsibilities of being a wife. Learn the wisdom of a good wife. Learn the skills to maintain a strong relationship with your husband, and learn how to handle situations and family matters effectively. These are all necessary lessons to become a capable and devoted wife. And here are the important lessons every good wife should learn. Marriage is incredibly complex. It doesn't just involve the relationship between two people, their personalities, habits, education levels, and personal qualities. It also stems from emotional foundations, genetic predispositions, and especially the environment in which they were raised, the family background, their parents' educational levels, the quality of their parents' marriage, and many other factors. It's certainly difficult to explain all these matters in a short amount of time. Even though many people who seek counseling want quick results, they often lack patience for in-depth analysis. However, I still hope to provide detailed breakdowns, a roadmap for emotional growth, and the development of the husband-wife relationship, so that people can recognize their roles within it. After reading this book, most wives or husbands will likely be able to apply more wisdom or skills to resolve issues between spouses. In a family, the wife can carry half the world. In a marriage, if the wife's role and ability are strong, the success rate of the marriage could be at least 50%. Because family and marriage often demand more from women, an excellent wife is not only expected to shoulder half the responsibility, but often even more. For young women, instead of letting a marriage end after trials and failures, it's best to begin by enhancing your understanding of marriage and recognizing your role in it. The beginning may seem gloomy, but what comes next can be an interesting journey. People often say knowledge changes fate. This isn't just a cliche. Learning to change your fate is a real thing. Through education, one can gain the wisdom, knowledge, and skills necessary to succeed. Being a wife is not easy. It is meant to help, to inspire, and to empower young women, whether they are married, about to get married, or simply dreaming of becoming someone's life partner, to learn, grow, and become wise, capable wives. Many girls, after getting married, wish for their marital life to be like 1 + 1 is equal to 1, that she and the man she loves will stay together for life, sharing everything as one. She dreams of a shared home, a love that never grows cold, and believes they will grow better together, two as one, walking side by side and enjoying life together. Many women have entered marriage with this yearning. However, they may quickly feel disappointed. First of all, love doesn't grow cold overnight. It fades gradually. Psychologically speaking, romantic love is just one phase of emotion and rarely lasts more than 24 months. Beyond love, it requires perseverance, responsibility, and commitment. Secondly, I'm certain that men change a lot after marriage. The man who once adored you during courtship, who never prioritized his pride when chasing after you, who treated you like a queen, he might rush to buy you McDonald's at 1 a.m. He is the one who obeyed and fulfilled your every wish. But I believe, once you're married, he'll only feel joy when he sees that he has made you happy. He will still spoil you, but only if you can spoil him too. He'll still be gentle, but only if you are softer toward him. If you want McDonald's at 1 a.m., he might just suggest you skip it and lose weight instead, and he won't go out to get it for you like before. Like it or not, this is how men change after marriage. The man who never demanded anything from you while dating will gradually expect more once you're married, though often expressed subtly or indirectly. He may love seeing you arrive home on time and would prefer you come home straight after work instead of lingering for coffee or shopping. He'll think staying home is more practical and saves money. He'll want you to tidy up, hate seeing the house look like a mess, and he'll want you to wash his socks, underwear, and shirts that he wears every day. Before marriage, he may have tried his best to buy you whatever you wanted. After marriage, you'll likely become the one managing the finances. He may even say to you one day, "We need to be more careful with money now that we have kids. We can't spend like we used to." Every time you visited his parents before the wedding, he would ask you to sit still while he helped his mom with chores. But after the wedding, if you visit his parents' house, he'll wink at you, implying you should help out while he sits and chats with his dad on the sofa. Before the wedding, he sweet-talk you nearly every day. After the wedding, he still speaks sweetly to you, just occasionally or when he needs something. Men are like this. If you meet a man like that, don't assume you married the wrong person. Most men are the same. It's because their physical and psychological structures differ from women's, leading to very different responses to the same thing. When a woman believes that after a romantic wedding, she will finally live in a 1 + 1 is equal to 1 world with the one she loves, the man often believes that after marriage, 1 + 1 is equal to 2. This shows the fundamental difference in thinking and emotional logic between women and men. Women often approach marriage more emotionally, while men tend to be more rational. That's why they usually have different feelings and expectations about marriage. Especially, women place high hopes on marriage. I believe that every bride who has worn a wedding dress has attached her happiness and future dreams to the marriage, immersing herself in the fantasy of a perfect future. Precisely because of such high expectations, when reality strikes, women are often the ones who feel most disappointed. In truth, I believe men are right. Marriage is simply about living together. The wedding ceremony merely allows a man and a woman to sign a 1 + 1 is equal to 2 contract and begin a long-term life together. Men transition from boyfriends to husbands, and women from girlfriends to wives. This is a completely new role that demands women adjust both physically and mentally to truly thrive in it. Young couples who communicate well will have more meaningful conversations and better understand each other. Conversely, couples who rarely talk often drift apart, leading to conflict. Many of the couples I've counseled separated within a short time, and most of those marriages ended in divorce. After counseling many marriages, I've seen that emotional maturity and adaptability, especially from women, are crucial. The most important thing is the woman's growth and wisdom. In most of the happy marriages I've seen, there is always a good wife. I've often said that a good wife is the source of a strong family. A family that stays together and strong enough to chase a happy life doesn't depend on fate, but on whether the wife can shoulder the burden. Former U.S. President George W. Bush was born into a wealthy family. Before meeting his wife Laura, he was a heavy drinker, womanizer, and had no real job. At a friend's party, he met a beautiful woman, Laura, the love of his life. Laura changed his life completely. Her grace and softness tamed the wild George W. Bush, a reckless stallion desperate for a sense of normalcy. He started focusing on education, gave up his bad habits, followed his father's advice, got into politics, and eventually became the second U.S. president from the Bush family. In his memoir, he repeatedly thanked his wife Laura and believed that having a wife like her was his greatest blessing. She helped turn his life around and was the reason for his fate's transformation. Every man wants success and wealth. But I believe that a man with a good wife is the richest man in the world, because a good wife is priceless in a man's life. Shan had been married for less than a year when her marriage began to face turmoil. She and her husband are currently separated, and she has returned to her parents' home, where she enjoys a life of pampering and care. Shan feels that all the hardships have passed, and life is once again filled with happiness. Sitting in my counseling office, she poured her heart out with bitterness. Before I got married, I was my parents' princess. When we were dating, my boyfriend treated me like a princess too. But after we got married, he started treating me like a housewife. I didn't know how to cook, so I bought a bunch of cookbooks, and he made me learn. On Sundays, I wanted to go shopping with my friends, but he insisted I stay home and clean. Before we got married, he said I wouldn't have to do laundry because all our clothes would be sent to the dry cleaner. But after the wedding, he said dry cleaning was expensive and made me learn how to use the washing machine. He expected me to wash everything, even his dirty underwear. He hadn't even done that for his parents before, so why should I do it for him? I asked Shan, "What do you expect from a husband?" She said, "He should absolutely spoil me. I'm used to being treated like a princess. If he wants to be with me, he must be gentle, tolerant, and treat me like my parents do. Everything should go according to what I want. He shouldn't force me to do things I don't like. I love him because he makes me happy, not because I want to wash clothes and cook every day." Looking into Shan's innocent eyes, I asked her gently, Shan, do you think marriage still holds the same meaning for you as it did before? Why did you rush to wear that white dress?" Shan suddenly widened her eyes and exclaimed, "Because my boyfriend proposed to me." I was at a loss for words in response to Shan's answer. Here was a girl completely unprepared for marriage, someone who didn't understand what the word wife meant and yet had become someone else's wife. In truth, I've encountered many girls like Shan. Not long ago, I was on vacation on an island in Indonesia with a group of 8 people. Among us was a newlywed couple on their honeymoon. The 3 young men were all born in 1980. One of the women was born in 1985 and the other in 1990. While traveling together, I had the opportunity to observe the life of this newlywed couple. Among the 3 girls, one stood out with her simplicity and calm demeanor. She was gentle and responsible, fulfilling her role as a wife, always helpful and considerate. She supported her husband and demonstrated maturity through her actions. The other 2 girls didn't fare so well. One was spoiled and easily lost her temper, frequently yelling at her husband in public and demanding he serve her favorite dishes at meals, treating him like a servant. The girl born in 1990 was even more difficult. She wore revealing clothing and seemed indifferent to the people around her. She smoked constantly, had yellowing teeth, and showed little respect for others. At the table, both of these girls were the first to declare that they wouldn't cook, wouldn't clean, and that their husbands would do everything. Their husbands even competed in grilling. One complained that his wife wouldn't eat rice or meat because she wanted to stay slim and only ate healthy food. The responsibility of cooking fell to him, even though he was tired and unsure what to prepare. Since it was still their honeymoon, I didn't say anything. But how long could this fairy tale last? I felt a sense of concern for them. If these men remained focused on family and didn't face too much pressure from their careers, perhaps they could continue spoiling their wives like this. But from what I know, most men carry a heavy burden, juggling work, ambition, and family responsibility. When exhausted outside the home, it's hard to believe they can come home and still pamper their wives. I doubt they'll continue to do so. Eventually, these women will face hardship if they don't change their roles and responsibilities. Given the current situation, I see no sign of their readiness to adapt to life as wives. What is a wife? I've discussed this with many soon-to-be married women. To me, a wife is not just someone who is spoiled by her husband. A wife is also someone whose hands know warmth and cold, someone who brings comfort to a tired man. A wife is someone who takes care of others, knows when to give her husband space to save face in front of others. When something happens, she remains calm and composed. A wife shoulders the responsibilities of a family. Don't expect your husband to help with everything. Even if he offers to help with laundry, the cleanliness of the house should still rest in your hands. Most importantly, a wife should be a woman of warmth, with a warm smile, a gentle heart, and a loving personality. She should make her home a haven, a place where her husband doesn't want to leave. A wife is someone who sustains love and makes marriage last. Through long-term marriage counseling, I've found that one major reason for high divorce rates is that many women do not fully understand the role and responsibilities of a wife. If one cannot be a good wife, it is naturally difficult to have a happy marriage. When all our wives look like princesses, it's hard to say how long such a marriage can last, because that largely depends on the man's endurance. I believe every woman will treasure her marriage and want to preserve it, hoping it lasts forever. I don't question your loyalty, but if you truly want your marriage to thrive, the first step is understanding and adapting to your role as a wife. You must recognize that after the wedding, you can no longer maintain a princess mentality because your role has changed, your environment has changed, and the dynamic between you and your husband has changed. You've become his wife, and he has become your husband. Now you are life partners, equal, close, and interdependent. You are no longer a princess pampered by your parents. Every day, you are gradually becoming a housewife. It might sound cruel, but it's true. By accepting the vows of marriage, you've made a commitment, and with that comes responsibility. You need to devote yourself, maybe even sacrifice part of your own desires, to protect your marriage. That is the price of your happiness and joy. The sooner you abandon the princess mindset and embrace the role of a homemaker, someone who brings warmth to the family, the easier it becomes to adjust to your new life. Marriage brings happiness, but it also demands growth and responsibility. Of course, taking on this new role often comes with pain. You may not yet fully understand your responsibilities, but I believe that as long as you love your husband and your family, Adjusting to your role will not be as difficult as it seems. I believe a modern wife must first know how to find her own happiness, to apply wisdom in her family life, not just follow instinct. If you don't want to shoulder all the housework, you can let your husband help, but you must respect and acknowledge his effort when he does. I always believe that cooking and doing housework together can be a beautiful part of married life. I especially disagree with the idea that women must do all the housework. That would only make men feel lazy or useless, and it does not help maintain a healthy marriage. Recently, many so-called miserable wives online are exactly the kind of women who expect men to work hard outside while they don't lift a finger at home. These women often end up feeling like used tissues, discarded once the husband no longer needs them. Marriage is a partnership. A smart wife will create opportunities for her husband to participate. A warm home managed together can keep both partners invested. So, turning from a princess into a homemaker isn't just a shift in status. It's a growth in capability. A good wife is not just someone who can cook or clean. She is someone who understands, motivates, and empowers her husband. When a woman knows how to nurture her family, her home becomes lush and vibrant like a tree nurtured with fresh water. 5 ways to achieve role transformation in marriage. 1. Understand the role of a wife and be willing to take on the responsibilities that come with it. 2. Accept the personal changes that come with marriage and adjust your role accordingly. 3. The key to adjusting your role lies not in appearance, but in substance. 4. Be ready for your husband to see you as a homemaker, not a princess. Only then can the marriage be sustainable. 5. Maintain emotional sensitivity in love and respond with rationality in marriage. Being a wife also requires using intelligence and strategic thinking.
The world does not slow down when you're broken. It doesn't pause when your heart is heavy or when the weight on your shoulders begins to whisper doubts into the folds of your soul. Chaos never waits for permission. It arrives unannounced, like a storm tearing through the illusions of order we so desperately cling to. And in the middle of this storm stood Jack. He wasn't seeking glory. He wasn't chasing fame. He was just searching for something, anything, that felt real. Something untouched by the noise. Something that breathed when everything else suffocated. And in that moment, when most people would have turned back, when the winds screamed quit, Jack moved forward, because deep down he knew the heart doesn't respond to logic. It answers to truth. And the truth is often found where everything else falls apart. Jack wasn't just walking into the fire, he was walking into himself. We live in a world that teaches us to mask pain with productivity, to cover emptiness with accolades, and to mistake noise for meaning. But Jack had learned the hard way that real meaning is never loud. It doesn't scream, it doesn't compete, it waits. Like Tien, the quiet storm with eyes that held galaxies, a presence that anchored chaos, and a soul that reminded Jack of everything he had forgotten about himself. You see, love, not the kind that's sold to you in movies, but the kind that strips you raw, doesn't come when you're ready. It comes when you've been humbled, when your pride has been ground into dust and you're finally willing to look inward. It comes when you're too tired to pretend, when your walls are cracking and the truth begins to leak through. That's when Tien appeared, not to save Jack, but to remind him that he never needed saving. We spend our lives chasing certainty, chasing structure, chasing validation, but the most powerful moments happen when all of that collapses, when the map burns and you have to walk by faith, not by sight. Jack didn't find Tien in comfort. He found her in crisis. And that's the lesson. What truly moves your heart won't be revealed when things are easy. It will reveal itself when you have nothing left to hide behind. Discipline isn't just about doing hard things. It's about doing the right thing when no one is watching, when your soul is bleeding and your mind is screaming for comfort. Jack had every reason to give up, every excuse lined up like soldiers ready to protect his ego. But he chose presence. He chose vulnerability. And in that choice, he found his way to her. There's a moment in every journey where the external world no longer offers direction, where the compass you've relied on begins to spin. That moment is sacred. That moment is terrifying. That moment is where most people quit. But Jack didn't, because something inside him, something deeper than fear, deeper than logic, said, keep walking. And when he did, he didn't just find Tien, he found himself. We often believe purpose is something we chase, something we must build through years of toil and strategy. But sometimes purpose arrives like a whisper. Sometimes it's not in what we do, but in who we are when no one's watching. Jack realized that as Tien stood before him, not as a prize, not as a goal, but as a mirror. He saw the boy he had forgotten, the man he was becoming, and the soul that had always been enough. Most people walk around with borrowed identities. They wear expectations like armor, hoping to be loved for who they pretend to be. But Jack, for the first time, dropped the armor. And in doing so, he gave Tien something more precious than words, truth. And in return, she gave him stillness. That rare kind of silence that doesn't demand, doesn't explain. It just is, like a heartbeat reminding you that you are, in fact, alive. What truly moves your heart cannot be explained. It cannot be replicated. It cannot be marketed. It is not loud. It is not fashionable. It is felt. And Jack felt it, not in the roar of success, not in the applause of the world, but in the presence of one person who saw through the noise and stayed. That's what we're all looking for. Not perfection, not fairy tales, but presence. Real, undeniable presence. You cannot build a life on the approval of others. You cannot sustain your soul on borrowed dreams. Eventually, you must return home to yourself. And Jack's journey wasn't about finding Tien. It was about remembering that he was worthy of being found. We all are. But the world won't hand you that truth. You have to walk through the fire for it. You have to let the chaos burn away the illusions. Only then will you hear it. That still small voice whispering, "This is real. Stay." And so he stayed. Not because it was easy, not because it made sense, but because something deep in his chest pulsed every time he saw her, not with desire, but with recognition. He didn't just want her, he remembered her, like something ancient, like something eternal, like something his soul had been waiting for long before his mind could catch up.
The city's endless lights stretching below, a sea of shimmering hope tainted by shadows. He should have felt a sense of calm, a feeling of safety. After all, Tien was hidden, far from the reach of those who wished her harm. But peace was an illusion, a thin veneer masking a storm that was always threatening to break. His phone vibrated on the table, pulling him from his thoughts. It was his mother. Her voice, warm yet laced with worry, wrapped around him like a comforting embrace. "Jack, you've been losing weight. You're not eating well. You look exhausted." "I'm fine, Mom," Jack lied, forcing a smile she couldn't see. just busy with work. Projects are piling up. Work isn't worth your health, Jack. You need to take care of yourself. You can't help anyone if you collapse. Her words cut through him. She didn't know. She couldn't know. About the threats, the lies, the people lurking in the shadows. About how everything he loved was hanging by a thread. But he couldn't tell her. Not his mother, not Tien. His love for them was his strength and his weakness. Tien was safe, or so he thought. She was tucked away in a quiet village, living with an elderly woman who treated her like a granddaughter. Jack visited her whenever he could, each time feeling a rush of warmth at her smile, the way her eyes lit up when she saw him. "Jack!" she would call out, her voice a melody that soothed his soul. "I didn't expect you so soon." "I had to see you," Jack always replied, masking his fear behind a smile. "I just needed to make sure you're okay." She would laugh, tell him stories about the garden she tended, the vegetables she picked, the simple joy of watching the flowers bloom. For a few precious moments, Jack could almost believe in peace. Almost. But even here, even in this quiet haven, the darkness lurked. The shadow of Fook, the man Tien called father, loomed over them. A man who had entered her life with open arms, only for Jack to discover the truth. Fook was not her father. He was a fraud, a pawn in a twisted game orchestrated by shadowy figures who used him to manipulate Tien. "Jack, do you think my father is proud of me?" Tien asked one afternoon, her voice gentle and hopeful. Jack's heart twisted. How could he answer? How could he tell her that the man she trusted, the man she loved, was nothing but a liar? "I'm sure he is," Jack whispered, his voice steady even as his soul trembled. But the lies were closing in. Fook's story was a tangle of deceit. He was searching for his own missing daughter, a child lost in the shadows of a cruel world. Desperate, he had taken on the role of Tien's father, clinging to the hope that it would help him find his real child. But who had orchestrated this cruel deception? Who were the people who used Fook, who manipulated Tien's life like puppeteers tugging at invisible strings? Jack's search for answers led him to a name: Huang, a woman with a past as twisted as the lies that surrounded them. She showed up at Jack's door one rainy night, her face pale, her eyes filled with regret. "I'm sorry, Jack," she whispered, rainwater dripping from her dark hair. "I made terrible mistakes. I hurt you. I hurt your family. But now they're after me too." Jack's heart hardened. "Why should I believe you? Why should I trust anything you say?" "Because I have nothing left," Huang cried, her voice breaking. "They betrayed me, Jack. They're coming for all of us. Please, please help me." Jack knew better than to trust her. But he also knew that the darkness was closing in, not just on him, but on Tien. And Huang, broken, desperate Huang, was a piece of the puzzle. But the puzzle was a nightmare. Shadows stretched wherever Jack looked. A twisted game played by invisible hands, manipulating lives, toying with hearts. And at the center of it all was Tien, sweet, innocent Tien, who believed she had found a father, a family, a future. "I trust you, Jack," she told him one night, her hand warm in his, her eyes filled with unwavering faith. "I trust you with everything." Her words were a dagger to his heart. He didn't deserve that trust. Not when he was lying to her, not when he was hiding the truth to protect her. But how could he tell her? How could he look into those trusting eyes and say, "Everything you know is a lie"? How could he tell her that her father was a stranger, that the people around her were actors in a twisted play? Even now, as he held her close, feeling the warmth of her embrace, Jack's mind raced. The shadows were moving, the threats were real. One night, as Jack walked home, a dark figure emerged from the alley. A flash of metal, a knife. Jack's instincts kicked in. He dodged, grabbing the attacker's wrist, twisting it painfully. "Who sent you?" he snarled, slamming the man against the wall. But the attacker only laughed. "You can't protect her. You can't even protect yourself." The figure broke free, vanishing into the darkness. But the message was clear. The game was on, and Jack was a target. "Jack, are you okay?" Tien asked the next day, her gentle touch tracing the faint bruise on his cheek. "I'm fine," Jack lied, forcing a smile. "Just a little accident." But she saw the tension in his eyes. She always saw it. And she worried. But she never pressed, because she trusted him. She trusted him completely. And that trust was a weight Jack could barely bear. The truth was a ticking bomb. The more Jack discovered, the darker the world around them became. Fook was meeting strange figures, whispering secrets. Huang was hiding more than she revealed. The people in the shadows were watching, waiting, closing in. Jack, Tien whispered one evening, leaning against his shoulder. Will you always be here for me? Jack closed his eyes, a tear escaping despite his strength. Always, Tien, I promise. But even as he spoke, he knew his world was a house of cards, trembling in the wind. And then it happened. Jack's phone buzzed. An unknown number. He answered, his voice calm, masking the fear that clawed at his chest. Hello! A cold, distorted voice crackled through the speaker. You think you can save her, Jack? You think you can protect her from us? Jack's blood ran cold. Who are you? What do you want? Laughter echoed, a chilling, hollow sound. You'll know soon enough, but you should know this. You've already lost. And soon. So will she. The call ended. Jack's knees buckled, his body collapsing against the wall. His hands trembled, his heart pounded. They knew. They knew everything, and they were coming for her. But who were they, and what did they want? What twisted game had he stumbled into? Jack's mind was a storm of fear and fury, but one thought cut through the chaos, clear as a blade. They will not take her from me. Not while I still breathe. Not while I still fight. But how long could he fight against shadows? And how long could he protect Tien without telling her the truth? The terrible, heartbreaking truth. And worse, what if she never forgave him when she found out he had lied all along?